Okay. Hello, everybody. Um, Welcome to another episode of Voices for Tibet. This is a series of video that tries to capture the voices of Americans supporting Tibetan culture, supporting Tibetan children's education, and also supporting the cause of the Tibetan people. We are trying to raise awareness of everything Tibetan in this program. Today, I'm really happy that I have a wonderful guest with me. His name is Marc Gold. He is the founder and director of a wonderful project called the 100 Friends Organization. For me, as a nonprofit worker, stories like 100 Friends Project truly inspire me. And so, Marc, I'm so happy to have you on the program. Tashdile and welcome.
Dr. Delay, I'm very happy to be here.
So, Marc, when I start off this interview, I request my guests to introduce themselves, tell them a little bit about themselves, as well as any organization that they are with. So that's what I want to request you. But in this segment, I want you to request you to give me a broad overview of the 100 Friends project as a whole, and not specifically focus on Tibet, because you can bet that my next question is going to be on Tibet. So can you give me a broad overview of the wonderful work that you do?
Okay, well, I started 100 Friends in 1989, so it's
Okay.
31 years old. And my idea was that I've always been drawn to Asia. I'm like an Asian person in a white guy's body.
Right.
I never really felt at home in America. And the first day I arrived in Asia, I said, okay, I'm home. And so the project is quite simple. I raise money in the United States, and then I travel to hospitals, prisons, schools, urban areas, villages, Afghanistan, Hong Kong, Tibet, Philippines, all over Asia. And as I go, I meet people and I find problems that not just money, money, of course, is important, but also my knowledge. I have a background in psychology and anthropology and social work. And I've been working with foreign students for many years as a community college professor and counselor in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I still live now. I live in Southern California near Los Angeles. And I was as I met people and learned about different things and networked and had many resources. I just I'm a problem solver, and and I always tell people you have to pay me back, and they look worried. Here's how you're going to pay me back. You're going to help someone else, and
Right.
I have really hundreds of stories like that. But we have some projects are just a one-time thing. I met a man once in Calcutta who needed a blanket because he was cold. I got him a blanket. I never saw him again. That's okay. Then we have our biggest project is in Burma,
Uh-huh.
Myanmar, and we have 200 kids, and we built three small little schools, and we have a nutrition program and a medical program and a social work program, and they're all squatters. They have no homes. They could
Right.
all be evicted tomorrow or in 100 years. They have no idea. And so we help the children and their families. We have another big project in Vietnam, a project in Amdo in Tibet, project in the Philippines, and some other smaller projects.
Right.
So really, there's no one particular focus. We do a lot with children and the elderly and single mothers, but we've helped whole villages. But it's mostly individuals, um, and some of it I do directly because I'm there. But I have 11 what I call ambassadors in
Hmm.
different countries, people that I know for many years, who are trustworthy, who are clever, who are smart, who are well connected, and fun. Also, that if you're doing this work and you're not having fun, something's wrong.
True. true.
Yes. So from these partners, especially during the age of COVID, um, my partner, for example, in Xining in Qinghai province in Tibet, he goes 3 4 times a year to villages, and he's like my nephew. His name's Namka. I love him dearly, and he'll say, "Okay, we found." I remember one elderly couple who needed food for the winter, $80. So of course the dollar goes so much further in a country like Vietnam or Nepal or whatever.
Right, right, right.
And many, you'd have to have me on for 20 hours to even scratch the surface of, because I've been to Tibet 3 times and India 20 times and Nepal about 10 times and Vietnam 20 times. And I
Gosh,
have very good contacts there. And people really underneath it all, they're the same. They're really the same.
Mark, you're making me jealous by, citing all the countries that you visited. Just from the top of your head, how many countries would you say you have visited?
It's about 70.
Gosh, that's a
'Cause
lot.
I've been to a lot to Africa. I've been to South America. I've been all over Europe. I've been to almost all 50 states, maybe 45, and many countries in Asia. And so, yeah, many countries, and particularly repeatedly, like Cambodia, at least 25 times, for
Okay,
example.
Mark, now you're getting into boasting territory. So I'm going to switch so I'm going to switch the topic back to Tibet. So Tibet, that's of course going to be my focus. So help me understand, when did you go to Tibet? What did you do?
Okay, well, it started when I was 5 years old. I was in summer vacation from kindergarten, and after a week, I was quite bored. And my father said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to travel the world, have adventures." So he gave me National Geographics, and he gave me, this is back in the 50s, 5 cents, which you could buy a comic or ice cream
Right.
for each magazine that I went through. And I had to read the captions at least, if not the stories, and report back to him. And after a while, I was making dollars. And the very first issue, I opened it up, and it was Tibet and India.
Uh-huh.
And I was in New Jersey, very bored, not so interesting. I said, "Wow, I'm going there." So I started reading about the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan festivals, and a lot about India and Sikhism and Hinduism and Islam and so on and so forth. And when I was around 9, they had an Indian restaurant that opened in my town. And I used to go there and pester these guys from Mumbai. Tell me about India. Oh, no, America is better. No, no, I want to know about India. So they would tell me about Hori and tell me about Krishna and tell me about all these stories, filled my head. And I started reading Rudyard Kipling, Panther. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, all these books about India under the British and all these stories, and it's been kind of a lifelong love. And of all the countries I've been to, and I love many of these countries, many people, Tibet is definitely number one in my heart.
Hey, Mark,
I can't
that's
say
what I want to
exactly
hear.
why, but the very first person I helped was Chetan Dorje.
Okay,
I met him on a trip to Darjeeling. And
okay,
so it's just grown and grown. And if I could only visit one more country, I'm 71, before I go to the next world, it would surely be Tibet. I'm lucky to have gone there 3 times, but
right,
also Tibetan areas in India.
right.
I've been a lot to Ladakh and um, uh, other places.
But
So
back in Tibet, but
yes,
I'm going to talk about your visit to Tibet itself too. I
yes,
know you have
okay,
been to
okay.
Kham, I know you have been to Amdo. So tell me, what did you do? What are some of the projects that you did in Tibet itself?
Okay. So this was around 2000, and uh, I be I told you I met Seton Dorje, the Tanka painter,
Yeah.
and we were in touch, and then we lost touch for a number of years. And I went to where I got the last postcard from him, and I found him, and so we resumed our friendship. And he was living then in Gantok in Sikkim,
Hmm.
and it's quite a story how I found him. But anyway, I found him, and then I learned that his parents, who I had met years ago, um, had to flee Tibet because of the Chinese invasion, and that he was his dream to go there, but it seemed impossible.
Right.
And so I had him as a translator, somebody much more knowledgeable about Tibetan culture, even than most Tibetans, someone who was connected to His Holiness. And so we went together and we went to the village where his mother was from and met many people who knew them. And the same for his father. We met some people who knew his father. And we went around together and looking for opportunities, of which there were many, to help people.
Okay.
I'll tell you one quick story
Okay.
from a nurse with Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders.
Okay.
She knew of a monk who would go spend the whole year begging and then send all the money that he could to His Holiness.
Oh,
And
inspiration.
the Chinese found out, and he was punished and blackballed, and he lived in a very, very poor little place. And we helped him just to get some medicine and to get some warm robes. And he wanted a message sent to the Dalai Lama, and he wrote it down in Tibetan and gave it to uh, Tsetan, who passed it on to his office.
Hmm.
And that was just the fact that Tsetan had and I had seen His Holiness, that alone was a thrill for him.
Right. Right.
So and then we there was a school that we couldn't go to because it was too far, but they needed desks and chairs and school supplies and that sort of thing. And then we went to the hospital, and the doctors gave us grand rounds, took us around to each patient, and we found out this patient needed this patient needed that, this patient needed money for medicine, and so on and so forth. And some people we just met. I remember one woman I met. She was uh, looking through a garbage dumpster,
Hmm.
and she was looking for food for her and her three children. She had no husband, and I knew of a French organization there that provided services and sometimes housing, and I didn't have to give her not even one rupee or yuan, as they call it in China. I just connected this woman to this French agency, and they got her housing. And we did pay to set her up in a small business. We've done a lot
Hmm.
of that, and I have her picture, and that's the last I ever saw of her. So these kind of projects, and we went very very remote areas in, for example, in Qinghai. We went to the countryside, and that's the only time in 31 years that the police followed us all day
Oh,
in a van with tinted windows. And
right.
at the end of the day, my Tibetan friend Namchukya, he knew the police, and he went there with my passport and said, "You're probably wondering what we're doing." And the Chinese chief of police knew him quite well. Yeah, we were wondering. He said, "Oh, we went to the grandma and we did this, and we went to the children's school. We did that, and here's the picture of this, and here's the picture of that, and here is." So Nanchukia talked to the police and said, "Here's what we did. Here's everything." And the policeman said, "Okay, that's fine. I'm not worried about that. But your story doesn't make sense. One thing." And my friend said, "What's that?" "Why would this man come thousands of miles to help people he doesn't even know? Why doesn't he help people in his own village in America?"
Right.
So he said, "Americans, they're a little funny."
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And
Right.
the policeman shook his head, and that took care of that.
Right. So I have a follow-up question, Mark. You said that, if you had your wish to visit one country for the last time, it would be Tibet. Hypothetically, let us just assume that I do have this magic wand, and I can help you go back to Tibet. Okay.
Okay.
In such a scenario, seeing what you saw in Tibet, the needs, whether it's in education sector or whether it's just poverty alleviation, if you had a chance to go back to Tibet with Setan Doje, your favorite Thangka painter friend,
Okay.
what would you do? What would you try to help? Would you try to build a school, or would you try to reach out in health and human services? Where do you think the need is the most in Tibet?
Well, our focus has been and would continue to be Children, especially children's scholarships or
Okay.
medical needs, that would be one area. The second is the elderly. I
Okay.
see a lot of elderly who need either food or fix the roof, or they need a walker or a wheelchair or warm clothing.
Okay.
So, as far as building schools, that's a big project. I have done that. I did that in Afghanistan, but it
Right.
takes quite some time, and it would depend how much, really, how much money and how much time I have. The Chinese are, see, I often go unnoticed. I'm just a tourist as far as they
Right.
know, and if it's not against the law to give away, we'll use dollars, $1. It's not against the law to give away $100.
Right.
Um, but building a school, then you're getting into government and all of
I
that.
understand.
School repairs is easier. School supplies, whether it's desks or one place in Tibet, we got 6 heaters because
Hmm.
the classrooms were cold. Um, and then we discovered in Zanskar a clinic that needed money just for medicine, and so we actually went with the director to a rather large pharmacy in the upstairs part. And yes, I need this antibiotic. Yes, we need these surgical gloves. Yes, we need these needles. Yes, we need these pain medication, like that. So I'm really trying to go and see where is the need. How can I be useful? Sometimes I see a problem and I say, okay, I'll send money later. There's still Western Union there, you know.
Right. Right.
So, but the important thing, especially with my friends Namka and Nanchukya, is they live there. They know the people. They've been doing this for years.
Right.
We went on a 2 week trip. Oh my God! I mean, Ando almost as big as France.
Okay.
These are gigantic provinces, but they took us to monasteries. They took us to villages. These are 10, 11 hour drives. I mean, but to see the countryside is very, so to go to the villages, to see the people in their homes, to eat with them. Uh, and I have lots and lots of photos of the elderly that we met, the
Right.
children that we met. I remember two children, their parents had died in a car accident
Mm.
recently. They're living with grandma. They don't have that much shoes and coats and that sort of thing. And then sometimes it's after I leave, I'll get an email from someone like Namkar Nanchukya. We need for this, we need for that. And so that's kind of how it works. So
Right. Right. Right.
single mothers or even couples, we help men too.
Right.
So there's the budget, and there's the contacts, and there's my experience, and you have to make judgments. Sometimes you feel like we made some films, which are also available on my website. So we just try to use the money that we have, use the time that we have,
Right.
use our experience to have the most practical benefit. My
Right.
favorite word in the English language is practical.
Right. So, Mark, I see that if we had the power of the mantra and the ability to send you back to Tibet, I can see that you're going to be a very busy man.
Yes, and I'm
But I'm
hoping
going to,
I'm hoping by 2022 it'll be safe again.
okay, but I'm going to sort of um, make the canvas of a topic a little bit bigger and larger because I know that you are also part of the human rights group. So, as someone who has visited Tibet, I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts about the human rights situation in Tibet? You have to remember, I left Tibet when I was a really very young child. So, I mean, I followed Tibet as a Tibet activist, but as someone who has personally traveled to Tibet and seen things firsthand, what, if any, are some of the human rights issues that the world needs to focus on in Tibet?
Well, compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago, Tibet was much more visible on the world stage. Other tragedies or human rights issues or all of that, whether it's the Middle East or Africa or whatever, come to the fore. So there's less awareness and focus of that. I read a book called Tears of Blood, Tears of Blood, and
Okay.
It's a very graphic description of what it was really almost a genocide
Right.
ongoing. They had children reporting on their parents. They had these so-called re-education camps, and now we see very similar things happening to, is it the Uyghurs? I think it
Yes.
is. Yeah, yes. But the principle of control and cutting off the culture and putting people in prison and torture. Uh, I have been helping a group in Dharamsala called Guchu Sum.
Yeah, yeah, I know that
Yes,
organization.
yes, and I met the director, and I helped a number of people who were in prison. Some fled to India. It's terrible, and it's terrible even for a lot of ordinary Chinese who've got caught up. The surveillance, the imprisonment, the cutting off from the culture. So it's very, very tough for me as an individual American from the outside. I've helped a few people there after they got out, but I can't just like I went in Nepal, and I went and to the prison, and I met some political prisoners, and I was able to give them some money for like toothbrush, soap, books,
Right,
medicine, that sort of thing. But of course, in parts of Tibet, you have to have, like in Utsang, where
right,
Lhasa is, there you have to have a guide who's approved by the government, and they kind of watch you all the time. Not so for Com. It's much more loose there.
right,
You can go more, but even in as I told you, I was followed by the police. So of course it's bad. Human rights has never been their strong point, to say the least. I have hopes that the generation of young Chinese now, with a certain amount of internet access and exposed to the world, will have fresh ideas, new ideas. These ideas can never be quashed forever.
right. And Mark, I share my hope, that things will get better for Tibet and Tibetans. But I'm probably now coming to my last question with you. And Mark, I'm also really happy to be talking to you as a former teacher. I didn't know that. I didn't know you were a teacher like myself. In fact, I read up that you actually won the Teacher of the Year in Manhattan way
I
back in
did.
1997, and that Martin Luther King Sr. himself,
1977.
1977, and
Yes,
that Martin Luther King Sr. himself
yes,
presented that medal to you. What a huge privilege.
he
What a
did. It was a great feeling, and I was very happy to receive that
right.
award.
And then, so for my final question, I'm going to focus on Tibetan culture, and I'm going to ask you to put on the hat of a teacher and get you into a hypothetical situation, Mark, where I'm going to send you back into a classroom, and you're teaching this class something about Tibet and the Tibetan culture. What is the one thing that you would want your students to know about Tibet?
The one thing I want them to know is what my Chinese minders wouldn't allow me, which is that Tibet has always been and is an independent country and culture, and that Tibet has its own identity, and Tibet has much to teach the world and to have pride in, an incredible history, um, and it goes way beyond the Dalai Lama. It's really something in each and every Tibetan. At the same time, not to have an overly romantic view. There are Tibetan murderers, there are Tibetan
It's like,
thieves, just
let's
like
not talk
every
about those.
culture.
Right.
Because some Westerners have a kind of romanticized
Sure, I
view.
understand. I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. But the main thing I would encourage is learning, pride in their culture, going to their grandparents to understand the stories, to keep that precious thing alive. Because the Tibetan, without his language, without his religion, without his culture, without his art, without the family connections, a Tibetan without that is a Tibetan in name only.
That
So
is so true, Mark.
whatever I could do to inspire that, I would like to do.
See, now that was a powerful voice for Tibet, Mark. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
being
much.
with us today. Touch the
Okay, and I'm hoping very much I can get back there and see my friends and do more good because that is really my favorite country to go to.
And see, Mark, I love you for that. Thank you for that beautiful heart for Tibet.
Thank
And I
you.
hope that your dream come true.
Okay,
Tash dile.
that's the delay.
Amoy sarvanta thaingatebhyo aradebhyo samyak sambuddhebhyo namo arya avalokete shvaraya bodhisattvaya mahai sattvaya